a martial arts movie podcast.
I threw that shit before I walked in the room.
Featuring drunken Thai boxer Will.
Too bad you will die.
The also drunken wrestler Mark.
I said I don't want trouble.
And drunken karate master Zaror.
You've lost your balls.
And now,
I know Kung Fu. You know, baby.
Fists of Fail.
All right, we are recording this on June 1st, 2020, the 10-year anniversary of Undisputed 3. Woo. We'll talk about Undisputed 3 in a second. For the history books, when you guys are looking back on this, the world is on fire. You might hear some protesting in the background, but there's no avoiding that. So let's just move on from there.
Sure.
So Undisputed 3. Why are we talking about the third movie? Now, I just learned today that it's the third movie. I didn't even know that there was an Undisputed 1
Oh, the 3
2.
didn't give it away.
Oh, no, definitely did not. No, I'm just fucking with you. I've actually seen Undisputed 2, 3, and 4. I've never seen the first one. I heard that it's just a boxing movie. Oh, and I'm gonna get a lot of flack from people who are big boxing movie fans.
Yeah, I've seen Death Wish 5. Yeah,
but what?
That was a terrible joke.
But it was. So I've seen all of them, and I gotta say, this is probably like the most surprising series that you can get out of like any movie franchise, because it's one of those weird, rare cases where every installment in a franchise gets progressively better,
and it's a low budget, fairly low budget too.
Yeah. So yeah, this is Undisputed 3. What Scott Adkins has called the pinnacle of his career.
Yeah,
I'm completely butchering that. But yeah, he did say he considers that one of his biggest accomplishments. Nice. And
I can see that. Yeah.
It kind of shows.
Yeah, I agree.
And the reason why we're talking about this one is because it's that fucking good.
Is it?
Wait. Wait, I thought I was the naysayer normally. I thought I'm the one who whines and complains all the time. But it is true on a fight choreography standpoint. It's probably one of his best. Just combing through recent memory, I think it's probably the most impressive in terms of what he can probably do. But that was until Boyka. which is the fourth movie,
right? Yeah, I haven't seen Boyka yet. I would really like to, just because I liked what he did in this. I can't say that I was crazy about the movie though.
Right. So that's the little asterisk I wanted to add to everything. Like, this is the best Scott Adkins action vehicle, and the rest of the movie is just So let's. I'm gonna get this out of the way. All right, if you choose to turn it off right now, you can. Don't watch the movie. Watch the fight scenes, though.
What?
The fight scenes are incredible. Oh, okay. Mark has a different opinion.
No, because there's so many fight scenes, and it's a nice kind of progression throughout the whole thing, that I almost feel like if you just watch the fight scenes, you're kind of missing out a little bit. I mean, look.
That from
Plot, okay, pretty stupid, but the corniness of it all and everything, I like it. Accents the action, as ridiculous as it is.
I don't know if I could agree with you there. The plot is kind of funny to sit through just because of some of the choices and direction that they decide to go through. So this is a 2010 film, and it doesn't age so well in terms of some of the style that they decided to go with. We kind of mentioned this in the Danny the Dog episode, where this movie incorporates a lot of those kind of slam zooms, and it has that swoosh sound effect to go along with it.
That's why it's so great.
To kind of make it seem cool or interesting, but it just comes across as very cheesy now. And they tend to overdo it. So it feels like parody almost.
That's why I love it so much.
Yeah.
And it's like in those moments, like for example, the Colombian, when you get that zoom all of a sudden real close and he looks like a derpy giraffe, like as if he just like got stung by a bee or something. Like, I don't know. Like there's something going on there. Like it kind of makes the movie a little bit more fun. That's what I mean.
Well, yes, yeah. We were honing on the fact that sometimes we were laughing at the movie because of how like over the top it got.
Yeah.
The editing was awkward, like to a point where after a while you just start developing like nervous twitches as an audience member. You're like, oh, okay, that was weird. Okay, I'm just gonna laugh because that was awkward. And I love how you say that the plot is worthwhile to watch, but you were the one checking out last night.
No, well, that was legitimately because I was tired, not because I wasn't interested. Up until about like 2/3 of the movie, I was all there, and then after a while, I was just passing out because legitimately tired, not because of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tournament movie. I feel like you've seen one tournament fight film. You've kind of seen a lot of them. There's not so much. There aren't so many things you could do differently to make it stand out. You have to get the fighters in the ring in a tournament bracket. So and then you have to kind of flesh out some of the characters while ignoring others. There's only so many different ways you can present a tournament film.
I was hoping Jean-Claude Van Damme would just pop in any moment during that whole movie. Just waiting.
Well, if we're talking about the tournament format, you've seen a lot of movies. This is that, but stripping out every B plot, C plot. There is no subplot in this movie. It's just the A plot. There's nothing else to it. It's just there's a tournament and people are fighting, and that's it.
The B plot would be them trying to bro up the characters, or make them chummy, but
escape.
It just doesn't work. Yeah, there is a slight escape plot, but yeah, you're right. There really is no B plot going on. It's just okay. Which is kind of nice. It's like, okay, what's the essence? They just need to fight, and that's kind of it.
Yeah. Well, I think Enter the Dragon. Well, there's a tournament, but also it's about him saving or avenging his sister, and then there's Jim Kelly's story, and and then there's Bruce Lee's story. There's a lot of things going on. Here, it's just like, oh, well, we have a bunch of people who are going to beat each other up. Okay, but let's just try to be fair here. What is the plot really? I could take this if no one else wants to.
Please do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I guess I'll take it. So Scott Adkins coming out of Undisputed 2. He's coming out of Undisputed 2 with a broken leg or a not fully healed leg, or no, knee, I guess. And if you haven't seen Undisputed 2, you really don't have to.
Yeah,
this
don't.
movie caps it off pretty well. And I will say, Zero was saying this before, just to jump off that thought. Even though this movie takes place or was filmed and released 3-4 years after Undisputed 2, and is the third installment of it, it's more 2000s than Undisputed than the movie that it was preceding it. Because that movie holds its restraint when it comes to the editing, all the slam zooms and everything. It's everything it's a lot more subdued. Here, it's just full force. It's nonstop editing. It's oh, we got to zoom into this guy's face and then zoom back out.
I'm sure there's some kind of correlation between at the time there was a formula that really worked for movies, probably some Michael Bay era timing stuff, So it probably worked and they used that. But they did focus on the fights a lot and put a lot of effort there. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, yeah, right. We'll continue this thought when we get to actual action. But the rest of the plot is Scott Adkins, after being an asshole throughout the second movie, I guess he's still an asshole in this movie.
Yep.
Yeah, Zero's all about that.
He's still an asshole who I guess is kind of religious, and you only know that because of maybe a few scenes where he prays.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, and he has tattoos all over him. Yeah, his tattoos all over his body, man. You really can't not pay attention to his body. He is so jacked in this movie.
Am I sure?
What?
He was religious.
were you
like,
looking
I
at the women
honestly
in this
don't
movie?
remember.
Mark,
I
were you
have the
looking at the
movie on
women in
right
this
now.
movie?
All right, fair enough. I give.
All right. Well, yeah. So Scott Adkins now has, I guess, come out like a couple years after Undisputed 2 is trying to get back into fighting, and he's still in the underground fighting like realm, but like his entry into it like leads him into a tournament, and unbeknownst to him, he gets tricked into doing hard labor. And if you lose in the tournament, you are shot at gunpoint, and that's the movie.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I guess one thing we could touch upon is that he is fighting different prisoners from around the world. So it's a world tour, kind of like Street Fighter.
Choose your character.
I like the
want to
flags.
choose
everywhere.
what's his name?
All the flags everywhere. What's the character? Blanca. Who was the Blanca of all of those characters?
Marco Zaror.
No. It would be Latif Crowder. Would be
Actually. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Oh man. So okay. Well, now let's get to the ensemble cast, because before Triple Threat, we have Undisputed 3, another movie that has just this large cast of, well, maybe not that large in comparison, but a pretty diverse cast of martial artists that we have here. If you know the martial arts movie world, you'll see a lot of actors who reprise, or not reprise, but they make an appearance in this movie. Like Latif Crowder being one of them, the capoeira guy.
Epic dude.
Like after Mark Dacascos, and Only the Strong. Outside of that, like, the only time you'll ever see anyone do capoeira in any movie or TV show is Latif Crowder.
Brazil.
AKA
Ponytail.
Latif Crowder's in it. We actually have a couple names that I'm not too familiar with, mostly because they do stunt work behind the scenes. We have Treyan Milanov Troy, Radislav Paranov, and Velizar P. No, sorry. I'm sorry.
Hooked on
that's
phonics over here.
That's prison guard. And Boris. God damn, I'm trying to remember the other name. Dimitar Joy. I'm sorry.
What are you doing, man? Just stop.
Are you having a stroke?
The movie has other fighters.
No. I need to point these guys out.
Well, you should be pointing out Marco Zaror.
Well, yeah, I already did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Well, I want to point these guys out because they take on Latif Crowder, they take on Marco Zaror, and they take on Scott Adkins in the movie. We also have Esteban Cueto. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And their choreography's, just as good as the lead performers, I guess, because they're like, even though they're not doing anything incredibly flashy, like they're hitting their marks absolutely perfectly, and that's that's why I give a little shout out. I'm just saying, just leave me alone.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. So basically, like as far as characters from, like you named the actors, but like you have basically a group of people from all across the globe, right? Like you got a French dude, you got like some Middle Eastern dude, you got the Brazilian dude, you have the Colombian, you got the Russian. I think there's maybe like one more Slavic dude in there, and
we got a North Korean fighter.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
Ilman
right.
Choi.
Yeah.
And you got the American, and I think that might be it, unless I'm missing somebody.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, a nice mosh podge of people.
Right. Yeah. And the only one that's not a martial artist or stunt person before the movie actually was made was the second lead character, Michael Shannon Jenkins, who plays Jones, Jericho.
Turbo.
Yeah, Turbos. Wow, I remember everything except his nickname. It's weird because he has 2 fight scenes in the movie, and he plays more of like the boxing role.
Yeah.
Like kind of similar to what you'd see in I guess the first Undisputed movie, but like his choreography again like is a lot simpler because he's not throwing any like crazy kicks or crazy stunt work, but I mean like it's still impressive. I'll be completely honest because it's very hard again to have a non-martial artist do complicated choreography in any way, shape, or form.
Also because he's old.
Well, we pointed that out, like, cause he was like 40, I guess, when this movie was made. Like, he does not look 40. He looks like
really
23.
Good.
Yeah, and then that body match. You're gonna notice that there are no women in this movie.
Wait. There was one.
So you're gonna be looking at a lot of half-naked men throughout the whole film.
Nice.
Classic. Into it.
Always classic. All right. Well, so we have a really weird case with this movie because it's one of those rare cases where you have a lot of fight scenes in the movie, but it's completely offset by how much story there is that it makes it feel like there's not enough fight scenes.
Yeah, well, what happens is we get like glimpses of small fights like in the beginning, like they kind of set up this I guess this like opponent for Scott Adkins to fight. I think his name is Psycho, and we keep on getting like brief flashes of him fighting some rando, and there's not really any choreography. It's just showing that he's like overpowered and like brutally beating this guy up. And then eventually, excuse me, Scott Adkins fights him, but it's like so short, like it's hard to discuss the choreography when it's more story driven. It's just trying to show like, hey, sure, Scott Adkins, his knee has been kind of disabled, and now we have to see if he's healed it for this fight.
Right.
And
how does he heal it?
He does like leg lifts with like a bucket with his mop bucket. Is that what he does?
Yeah, filled with water.
Yeah.
I mean that story wise, he's only in this. He's in the, I guess like the lowest level of prisonry. Being an inmate, he's like mopping the place. He's like a janitor there, like he's just cleaning up shit literally for everyone else, just bottom of the barrel really. So he's trying to make claim to be the best fighter again and claim his title because he's so prideful and such. So he takes down the Psychoff, who is I guess the reigning champion of that prison, and that gets attention of the higher ups who send him to this tournament thing. But yeah, action-wise, the one standout thing I want to point out is that Scott Adkins does one of my favorite moves, which is a side flip into a side kick. And Scott Adkins has said via the Undisputed 2 making of that it is more difficult to do those acrobatic movements when he has to look that jacked up.
Yeah.
Because he has to put on a lot of weight.
Yeah, he was saying recently in the interview, the one that you sent me, that like he can't be as nimble and as flexible when he has to put on that mask because like you're not only are you jumping, but now you're jumping with an extra like I don't know, like 10 pounds or 20 pounds of muscle on you. So like I have to say the guy looks really, really good in this movie. I haven't seen 2. I think I saw like a few stills, but like he looks like really, really defined here. Right.
It's funny because he looks good in all 3 movies that he's been in, and in the third. Well, I don't want to talk too much about the 4th one, but in the 4th one he's like 39 years old, and he's still doing like crazy acrobatics. And here I am, like just nowhere near his level.
He's dedicated,
so
man.
I'm like, I have no excuse.
So.
All right, enough about me being jealous about his body. So,
tell me more about your crush.
Yeah, this movie just gives me all these complexes. All right.
These
well,
emotions.
So now that we're brought to the actual tournament area where we get introduced to the other prisoners, we have like a series of fights, and I thought this was kind of weird.
It's like 3 or 4 fights that happen like one after the other. It's like
yeah.
You're talking about the elimination round?
Well, the
Right.
the first, I guess the first bracket of this tournament.
Right.
So we're at like the 30-minute mark now in this movie, and sure, there were like little moments of choreography here and there, but nothing really. Like now they're just like, all right, well, here are 4 fights in a row or 3 fights in a row,
Yeah.
and then just to jump ahead a little bit, you're like, oh, cool, we got a bunch of fights, and then you realize, oh my god, there's like another 30 minutes of like no fighting. And I'm like, oh, why did they pace it out this way? It just it like we got all excited after those fights, and then afterwards we're just like, oh no, this is just gonna be more story.
They like, so yeah, I mean, I guess you guys didn't appreciate that, but I actually enjoyed the fact that it was like
You did?
like I kind of did, because you have like this first section of the movie where it's like, okay, serious yet building up, you know, like you got a training montage in there, you got quote unquote training montage. I mean, he's picking up a bucket with his leg, like, all right, whatever. You got the introduction of characters, you got the introduction of this idea of a tournament, you got all of this stuff. So it's like, okay, build up, semi-serious, a little bit of funny here and there. Okay, cool. That removed, all of a sudden you got all those fights just consistently throughout. You got so many fights, like you said, like 4 of them. And then you got that half an hour of just like comedy, story building, but it never took itself too seriously, which is why I don't think it was
Really?
so bad. Because, like, come on, like, it was just so ridiculous in certain points. Like, literally, at one point, when they were, like, breaking rocks in that comedic section, they like, Turbo, like, in the side shot, there was a flower, and I'm like, hey, it's the only flower, like, watch him rub that on his knee, make some, you know, whatever. And literally 10 seconds later, he's like, hey, like, this is an herbal plant, like, here you go, like, muddle this.
That's
in
later in the movie.
I know, but like, that's part of that half an hour stretch, you know. So like, there's like these comedic, like, kind of, I put character building in big quotations there, part before or after the fight scenes. But
man,
I enjoyed it, and then you got more fight scenes.
Try to sell that to the listener right now. Like,
I
all right,
know.
You have like 5 minutes of fight scenes, really good fighting, but then you have to sit through 40 minutes where there's nothing happening on screen.
I think the quarantine's getting to me, so any like attempt at joy and funny is great for me right now. I think I'm a little bit biased, and I think my perception's skewed.
All right.
But back to the fight scenes.
The world on fire right now. Well, regardless of whether or not you like the rest of the movie, okay, yes, we do have 3 fight scenes. 4 fight scenes, like, right next to each other. And
Literally back to back to back,
yeah.
because we're kind of watching the tournament unfold in real time, pretty much.
Yeah, and this is unprecedented for us, because now we're just gonna have to rapid fire talk about them, because there's not like, oh well, and then this leads into the next fight scene. It's like, nope, now we jump to the next one.
It's just fight after fight after fight. Yeah, I was thinking about this going into this episode, and I was like, man, like I hate talking about fights in this kind of way, because it's like usually we break it up with, okay, this is what happens that leads us into the next fight, but now I have to try and remember all the fights back to back to back. It gets really difficult.
Right. Yeah. Well, okay, but again, that's not to detract at all from the fighting, because the fight choreography in all these fights are pretty good. It's weird because Latif is probably displayed as like one of the more talented he's not a boss, because he's not like a bad guy, but he's like this. He's one of those like lower level opponents, but he's so talented that he like completely outshines everyone else in his class. So this first fight,
I mean, he definitely steals the show because, I mean, capoeira is the more visually flashy and kind of visually interesting compared to what all the fighters are kind of doing. Like he's doing all these elaborate cartwheels and flips and tumbles, and everyone else is kind of using like very basic MMA style moves, like or kind of kickboxing type moves. So I think that was probably intentional to just make him stand out even more.
And he's doing them with such ease too. Like it just makes you think, like, holy crap, how like this guy is so skilled, this guy is so flawless in his execution throughout the whole fight scene. It's epic and beautiful to watch.
Oh hell yeah. We're gonna have another fight with Latif later in the film, but this is our introduction to him, which is weird because he's not even a main character at all, but we we have a whole entire fight scene all dedicated to him.
You wish he was a main character.
Yeah, kind of. That's because he's far more likable than Turbo. I thought he was really annoying. So anyways, you were saying this about yes, the other fighter who Latif takes on, like does like some MMA, and it's interesting because Latif is also throwing some like grappling moves and some punches, and that's atypical of capoeira. You really don't do anything outside of, well, not that you don't do anything, but like you rarely see punches in capoeira. It's mostly like kicks and flips. That's just their style, and Latif is actually like throwing them as well to like incorporate in his choreography. It's kind of interesting, and like he does his takedowns as well. Like I love that move where he throws he puts his opponent in an arm lock, throws him to the ground. He puts him in an arm lock in midair, throws him to the ground, and then while the other guy's on his back, he's trying to deliver a knee to the face, but the opponent blocks just in time, and I think that's pretty like what you would see in an actual fight, like the UFC and such. Minus the acrobatics.
Yes, I was about to say, like, what are you talking about?
Right. What I mean is like you're gonna see more like feinting and blocking and more grappling moves, and that's more typical. But obviously this is way more flashy, for cinematic purposes.
Right. One of the things I wanted to touch upon that I think this movie does really well is their incorporation of the grappling and MMA type moves. Because for me personally, I tend to not like grappling in fights so much because I feel like it really slows down the pacing. And the way they did it here I thought was really smart is whenever they would get into like grappling sort of moves and both guys were on the ground, they never lingered on these moments too long. Like they always would get out of them really quickly,
right.
and or they would get out of them in like a flashy way. So it kind of kept that momentum going. Like just to jump ahead a little bit, like whenever Scott Adkins would get into grappling moves in his fights, like he would always like kip up to kind of keep it exciting, visually exciting, because they were just on the ground. He kips up, and then they start going into more like of the visually flashy moves. I was like, oh, okay, great. Like you get the lull with them on the ground, but then immediately they start bringing it back up. So I thought they did it really well here.
Yeah. I think Boyka learned his lesson from Undisputed 2, which is don't grapple with anyone because you're gonna get your leg broken.
That is true. Yeah. We're shown, like towards the end of the fight, we see Latif just brawling it out. He's just throwing like haymakers and just jabbing and crossing the dude in the face. We get some stuff I wasn't expecting from Latif, because if you've seen The Protector or Tekken, Zero's favorite movie, I haven't seen it yet.
It will be your favorite movie.
Sure.
Yeah, like you'll know that they use Latif for his capoeira. So it's surprising to see that they try to incorporate different types of choreography for him in this as well. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on the first of 4 fights in succession.
Also, I just realized that it was him, so it was Brazil versus Greece, and I said he was Middle Eastern, so I'm going to get hate comments, but...
we can always pretend like you didn't say it. There is one, me being a nitpicker, there's one continuity error with this fight. there's a shot where Latif kicks, does a teep towards, well, they don't call it teep in capoeira, but he does a push kick towards his opponent, and the opponent like lands back at the ropes, and you see his chest is all bloodied up, really bloody, and then it cuts to the wide, and his chest is completely clean, like nothing there. It's like, why put that in there? But okay, whatever.
Geez, Will, you're gonna get like a production assistant fired. 10 years ago.
Hire me for Undisputed 5.
Hopefully they're better by now.
Well, let's see. What's next? We got... now we have...
USA versus Croatia.
Yeah, so now we have...
that's the other Slav. Ish.
You can say that because you are one.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The listeners don't know.
Hashtag
You're
fake
Chinese.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
So this is interesting. So like I said before, Michael Shannon Jenkins. I gotta memorize that name. He has...
Call him Turbo.
Well, I want to talk about the actor. He's not a martial artist. So we get a dedicated fight scene just for him. And if you told me he wasn't a martial artist, a part of me would be a little surprised. Because yes, this fight scene is simple, but in terms of the choreography, but it's, like I would be convinced that he kind of sells the boxing. But then again, I'm not a boxer. Like I've taken a couple classes in other things, but I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in terms of like what like authentic boxing is.
Yeah, well, how's that boxing coming during the quarantine?
I'm in my boxers. Does that count?
Ah, there we go. Perfect. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. Like, if you watch the fight, you would not really know that he's not a martial artist. But if you think about it, though, when I was rewatching this, I noticed that he doesn't throw any kicks. He's simply throwing punches and then doing a lot of blocks with his elbow. And I think, and this is just me speculating, I think because he wasn't a traditional martial artist or a trained martial artist, that's why they gave him that kind of special move.
Yeah, I think it was Zero that
fine.
said it. I think it was Zero that said it during the movie, where it's like the Ip Man special.
What?
He puts both hands like kind of in front of his eyes.
Yeah.
And I don't know why he does it, and then that causes him to kind of power up.
He gains all this spirit energy. He's making a spirit bomb. It's Dragon Ball Z, and he gets powerful.
I knew one of us was going to make a Dragon Ball Z reference in this episode. Well, yeah, it's funny because like what he does is like he puts a high guard up where he's covering his face. But what that actually does is it obscures his vision. So I don't understand what he's trying to do.
It's very confusing.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it causes the opponent to come in and then just kind of start wailing on him, but he's blocking everything. And then what you'll start to notice is he's kind of blocking with his elbows, and he's causing pain to the other guy who's trying to hit him. Right. And that's how he defeats the opponent, apparently?
Yeah. That's exactly it. I think that they gave him the one, because the actor doesn't know actual fighting in real life, but also he's from the USA. So what does what is the US touted for? They're touted for their boxing. So it's it makes sense, I guess. But what doesn't make sense is like if he just has his high guard up, like that shit has its weaknesses too. Just throw an uppercut. It's like that.
Well, it's
chin
really
is
weird
exposed.
because we get the POV of him of his hands in front of the camera.
Yeah,
and it literally obscures our vision as the viewer. Yeah. So
like
you're just thinking, why are we like putting ourselves at this disadvantage?
Yeah.
The only time it doesn't obscure it is when he does the typical classic "get over here" kind of thing.
Come here with his fingers. Yeah.
Oh wait, so this came out in June of 2010. Was this before or after Ip Man 2? Maybe they got influence from Ip Man 2.
Right.
Where Donnie Yen is attacking Twister's biceps.
Yeah. So
like disable the opponent while you can. I don't know. That I totally had like these Ip Man 2 vibes from this for some reason.
Same.
That's quite possible.
Yeah, even though it's not really the same, but okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some things in here that you don't see in traditional boxing. Well, like because you can't hit in the back of the head, so he just instinctively knows to use his elbow to block the back of his head when his opponent's striking. But then I'm also thinking like, why doesn't this opponent just attack his lower body?
Right.
Because like that again.
Well, he does throw kicks in every now and then, but yeah, like I guess it's just such an odd pairing because the other guy is throwing kicks, but he's always throwing high kicks. Like like he should have just been throwing low kicks and just completely disabled him.
It's weird to see boxing in a. Well, no, that's not true because in Ip Man 2 they kind of made it work, and Ip Man 3
Ip Man 3. No, I believe they made it work in Ip Man 3.
Yeah.
It's a little more fantastical. A little too much wires sometimes, but
right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Right. Well, not. I'm done shitting on this particular one because I actually do still want to give the actor Michael Shannon Jenkins. I remembered this time. I'm not totally looking at my screen right now. I want to give him props because again, he's not trained in this, but he sells his choreography because yes, it's hard to throw certain moves and acrobatics, but it's equally as hard to dodge certain kicks that are thrown your way if you are not trained for it,
and making it look real too.
Yeah, exactly. He makes it look like he's just dodging it with the skin of his teeth, and that can be tough for certain actors. Like if you aren't trained for it, you don't have split second timing, you're getting smashed in the face.
Or he's literally just trying to survive, and he's just taking it the whole way through, and he's pretending it's acting.
Hey, he was a soap opera star before this, so.
But props to him. No, for sure.
All right, so now we finally have, not finally, but because we have a lot more fight scenes in this movie. Well, now we move on to Scott Adkins' fight.
Russia versus France, if I remember correctly.
Yes. It's weird. Yeah, I don't remember too much that I want to say about this one. It's like this is just kind of like to establish that Scott Adkins is gonna be moving on in the bracket because like we get a lot better fights going forward. He throws this one move, and I was watching in the making of. You just see Scott Adkins like doing these bicycle kicks leading into a round kick, and watching him doing in the making of, like he makes it look so effortless. And then watching him do it in slow-mo, actually kicking a guy, it's like, how talented is he?
Yeah,
like,
seriously.
I will never get to that level.
Look, stop comparing yourself. But yeah, they're beautiful moves, and you can see the contact. You can see how perfect that is. It makes you wonder how many times he had to redo that particular move to just get it right. And that... I mean, this early in his career, well, relatively early in his career, he probably didn't have like a lot of stunt doubles and he wanted to do all of his action and stuff like that. So he was committed to this all the way through.
I'm pretty positive he did all his own stunt work in this too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, like there were I think it was the director. Oh, no, it was the fight choreographer, Larnell Stovall. He mentioned that like everyone else, like they do. Obviously we have a lot of studied martial artists here, but Scott Adkins is a tricker, or a taekwondo master, a black belt. It's like this is like comes second nature to him. Like you literally just like tell him to do this, and he'll just fucking do it. Like, that's how simple it is for him. And it's weird because like in this fight, the simplest move is the one that impresses me the most. It's when they take it to the floor, and like you said, like they don't stay on the floor long because cinematically that's boring. You want to stay on your feet because there's a lot more entertaining things you can see. So they're taken down on the floor, and because they're right next to the ropes, Scott Adkins just propels himself. He just pushes himself off of the ropes.
Oh yeah, I remember liking that moment. Like I didn't catch it the first time, but I was like, oh cool, yeah, he's using the ring.
Yeah. But I don't know why I like it so much.
Right. This fight is like, it's weird. Like in terms of choreography, like there aren't too many interesting like combinations I'm seeing. There are lots of nice bigger moves here. He does like a triple kick on the guy. He caps it off with a double kick, and then he does this really weird move. I don't know how to describe it. he jumps backwards onto his upper back.
It's
and
a suicide
then his
kip up.
leg.
But you can describe it for people who don't know. Sorry.
So he jumps backwards onto his upper back, and then his leg goes over his head and hits the guy behind him, who is also on the ground, and then he kips back up after that. It's so impractical. Like, it looks like that actually hurt him when he does it, but it does look cool.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, doing that move, if you don't do it right, you will hurt yourself more than anyone you're going to be kicking. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're gonna hurt your upper back, and then because he has to put the force, like it feels like he could really hurt his foot
Right.
by doing that, by hitting the other guy.
Yeah.
And his knee's already messed up.
That's true. It's funny because it's his right knee, but he's doing like his 540 kicks in this movie with his right leg. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. That seems like it would just damage it some more.
He's the Jean-Claude Van Damme. The right.
Yeah, like he still shows off some like crazy athleticism because like we have this. I don't know if I want to say it's uninterrupted cut because I can't really tell because we get this really annoying slam out. We slam out after Scott Adkins does a 540. And we have the foreground opponents getting off the floor, and then Scott Adkins does a flash kick. Now, if that was one continuous take without edits, I think it would be more impressive because, doing dangerous moves in succession are what make things more entertaining. It adds some risk value. But when you put an edit in between it, like I can't tell if it was like one continuous take. But that is remedied in a later fight where I want to talk about. So I don't want to be a dead horse. So I'm done with this one, and we have like 50 more fight scenes in this movie.
Well, he basically finishes him off though with freaking just slamming both of his legs into his chest and propelling him onto his back, pretty much giving him a cardiac arrest. Yeah, and then he's done. And that's it.
Yep.
Which is also impressive because it's just like, damn, okay.
Right.
Like, that's pretty powerful.
Right. So, Mark, when we were watching this movie much earlier in the film, we get introduced to the Colombian, and you were shocked. You were like, oh, shit! Now, explain to the audience.
I had the quickest reaction I think I've ever had in a movie that we've all seen together.
Now, explain to the audience who is the Colombian.
The Colombian is also known as Kiltro, which is another fantastic film. I am. What did I say in that podcast about the movie?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't reiterate your opinion on that movie. What I want to say about it is that Marco Zaror is way more villainous and creepy in Kiltro than he is in this movie, and he's not even. He's supposed to be the villain in this movie.
He just looks like a weird, like drunkard, like on LSD, like.
Well, he's supposed to be.
I don't even know what he's on in this movie. He's like.
I actually, looking back, like it's been a while since I've seen this movie, but looking back, I like the little character nuances he's doing, and maybe nuance isn't the best word. Like he's giving that kind of Latin. Cocky flair to his fighting, and in addition to his character, like he never has his hands up; they're always kind of like at his side. Like he doesn't really have his fists up, and it always seems like he's dancing. And I really like that. He gave this weird kind of grace, but he was also really cocky about doing it. So you kind of hated him for how he didn't take the fight so seriously because he knew he was going to win.
Well, story-wise, it was the whole system was rigged in his favor. So, he also has that in, to his advantage, so he doesn't have to take it so seriously. But
to go back.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No.
No, go.
No, well, I
was just going to say that I was gonna say his footwork were very reminiscent of like Bruce Lee, because Bruce Lee obviously like when I saw that particular shot that Zero was talking about, and he was doing all that footwork, and it was so smooth and elegant. It reminded me a lot of Bruce Lee, because there were times in old video clips and in his films, it was like the shot was kind of similar. There was focus on that. It was like emphasizing like, look at me, I'm light as a feather, like I could do anything right now. And they kind of actually really portray that well in that shot with, I'm just going to call him Kiltro because I like that name so much, but the Colombian. They really did it so well, and that whole thing made me feel like I was watching a Bruce Lee movie for a moment. And then also I really like the cross-eyed weird stare that he does every so often, which just takes me out of the moment. But anyway, Will, onward.
Well, it's funny because we're talking about what he like watching Kiltro. We get a small snippet of what he could do, even though the whole movie is dedicated to Marco Zaror. But it's so tiny. It's such a. But then we get way more of what Marco Zaror can do, like acrobatically and like martial arts related in this one movie, and he's not even like a leading character. But it's a good demonstration, and also like it shows that someone who's really tall, and I don't want to say lanky. He's not lanky at all. He has a build for someone of his physique. Like you can be very nimble, and you can pull off moves that you wouldn't expect someone who's that again, not lanky, but like that tall to do. Because like you wouldn't. He's
just really tall. Like he looks lanky because he's not as like he doesn't have as much muscle mass compared to Scott Adkins. So I can see what you mean. He kind of does come across as a little lanky, and then because he doesn't ball his fists, he kind of like flails his like fingers and his hands, so it kind of adds to that lanky mystique. Oh my god,
we're gonna keep doing Street Fighter comparisons. He's Vega.
I was gonna say that. Yeah. I was gonna say if they did Street Fighter, he should have been Vega. I felt like he would have been perfect.
That's why he kept on mentioning
He's got that attitude.
That's why I kept on mentioning it throughout the film. There's so many comparisons.
Yeah.
But he does this actually like hunched thing that he does that makes him also look very lanky. Where it feels like if he actually straightened up his back, he'd be like a foot taller.
Oh, yeah.
So it looks like he's smaller than he is, and that kind of gives the impression of him being like this skinny, wobbly kind of guy.
He's gumpy.
Not to mention, yeah. But not to mention in Kiltro, and this was 3 years before, he actually looks more massive,
right?
Built brick kind of dude. In this movie, it just looks like he lost like 40 pounds of muscle mass. Like it just, I'm getting that vibe.
He did look bigger in Kiltro.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if he like gained all that for like the kind of character he was going or whatever in Kiltro, but like he looks different. And then with the additional facial hair and everything, it just throws you off.
Right.
That's why I was so excited.
If he kept his build from Kiltro and and kept it for this movie, I think it would have been perfect because I want to say like just from appearances, if you take any stills from the final fight between spoiler alert, final fight between Marco and Scott Adkins, it's kind of off-putting because you have Scott Adkins, big dude, and you have the opponent who's not as big, and we don't need to see that in a fight, but but you see that he's capable.
It's kind of like right. It's kind of like fight expectations, though. You always kind of expect the bad guy to be bigger,
right? Well, that's
And even though he is taller than Scott Adkins definitely has more mass than him. I feel
right. And what was I about to say about but Marco? Fuck. Oh, I lost my train of thought. All right, can someone continue?
He's Colombian.
There's a really funny moment in this fight where he does this weird feinting to like psych the guy out, where it looks like he picks up his knee and he spins, and you think he's gonna throw like a round kick, but then he just keeps on spinning and keeps on picking up the knee, so he's just kind of twirling towards the fighter, and then he never throws anything until like until like a couple spins later, and you're just like, wait, what?
So in tricking, capoeira, I think they call it an autobahn. So you're like, you keep on feinting, but he does it like 4 times. Normally you do it like
that's
once.
a German road. I don't know what you're talking about. It's a highway.
Oh my God, you're right.
Oh, you didn't get that?
You're right.
That's awesome.
So the one he's fighting in this. Oh yeah, sorry. Before I lose my train of thought again, about Marco Zaror's build, and we're gonna keep harping on this. It's a good thing that the plot establishes that he's like juicing himself up or like taking steroids too, because I don't buy that Marco Zaror can take as much damage as he does. Because like the one who's fighting in this fight scene is Ilram Choi. Ilram Choi being the stuntman for the Amazing Spider-Man. He's been in the game for a very long time, and I wish I could name more movies with him in it. But really talented tricker and stunt person, tricker. I said tricker, Taekwondo, style. That's what he's doing in this fight scene. Showing Taekwondo, which I believe is a South Korean martial art, even though he's representing North Korea.
North Korea.
I mean,
whatever.
I mean, it's pre-war, but then it's been mostly cultivated in South Korea.
Yeah, but exactly. I saw. Okay, maybe that's why he lost this fight.
Oh
yes.
I gotta go, guys.
I'm sorry. How many North Korean listeners do we have right now? Yeah, right. But like there's one moment where Ilram Choi delivers a jumping, spinning back kick. Now, if you've ever seen Joe Rogan throw a spinning back kick, that shit is fucking powerful. Now you add a jump to it. That's fucking lethal. But Marco Zaror just takes that to the chest like nothing. But because he's lanky, again, I'm not trying to body shame him, but like if it weren't for the fact that they established in the story that he's taking something to withstand punishment, I wouldn't buy it.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right, just gonna move on from this body shaming thing I'm doing right now.
Do you want to get to the plot?
No. So I was watching the making. God. I was watching the making of for this movie, and there's one moment where they're showing Ilram Choi and Marco performing, for this particular fight scene. The same exact moment where Marco is doing a B kick to avoid a 540 kick from Ilram. Like it just barely misses him in the head. And the way that's shot in the making of looks way more interesting than the shot that you see in the movie. Because if you don't pay attention to it, if you blink for a second, you're gonna miss it. It's not framed correctly.
Yeah, I noticed that moment. It's because the Korean fighter, he's like in front of the camera, so it's almost like it's obstructing. But I know what you mean. Like I always thought like, wow, they were really close when they were doing that moveset.
Yeah, but you'll only notice that if you watch the making of, right?
No, I picked up that they were really, really close because like what happens is, the camera has to kind of truck in when they do that move because they need that space. But I guess you were seeing it at the different angle. I didn't watch the making of.
Well, I mean, the making of it's just a wide. It's a profile view of it. It's not that foreground background effect that you're talking about before. And I guess they're trying to throw us into the fight, but I would have preferred if we had it from more of a side view because crazy acrobatics. I don't really like. You don't want to see that up too close. It's like that elephant effect. Like if you're standing too close to the elephant, you don't see the elephant. That's I guess that's my philosophical analogy.
I completely agree. Whenever you have these kind of flashy moves, if you don't do it in wide, then you have the danger of being like, well, I don't know what I just saw.
Right.
There's too much obscurity with your vision. So why even do it like that?
Right. Yeah, that's true. Well, how does this fight end? Marco just pummels him in the face. And we get some cuts to, I guess, viewers around the world, and we get to see the first women in the whole movie. That's it.
Because there's no women in this movie. Yeah.
Okay. Just felt like pointing that out.
Surprisingly. Yeah, no love interests, no female side characters, absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and that, like you really don't notice it too much, but well, you didn't even notice until like
they're in
finished
prison.
The movie. Yeah, that's true.
Well, that's true. They are in prison.
No conjugal visits.
I mean, it makes sense in the plot in the grand scheme of things. And they're, I don't even know, like part of the time they're in like the gulag or whatever. So like,
Marco throws this corkscrew towards the end of the fight, and he's so like such a large person that it's like I feel like I'm watching like a black hole in front of my eyes. I'm like, I never thought I could see something like this, because it's like he's doing it, and he's really doing it, and it looks so impressive, but it's like seeing Bigfoot. It's like it's so hard like to imagine someone, because the bigger you are, like the harder it is to pull off the impressive move that he does, and you see his face, you know that he can do it. It's impressive.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So that's the 4 fight scenes that happen in a row, and then
back to back to back.
And then I guess Mark loves the next 20-30 minutes of story.
Oh god.
Something like that.
Please no.
Long story short, basically.
No, long story long.
We find out that no, long story long. Yeah. All of a sudden, Turbo and Boyka are hammering at rocks. They get into an altercation. Because of the altercation, they go to solitaire. Solitary, not solitaire. That's a game. Solitary. And then they talk to God, and one of them talks to God, one of them talks to the other. They're all about communication. They start learning how to love each other.
Well, the solitaire thing you just mentioned actually was a fight. But the reason why they went into solitaire was because they got into a fight. I guess that technically is a fight scene. And this is...
Yeah, it was just really short and kind of insignificant.
It's very, very short. I don't know if there's too much to discuss in there.
Yeah.
Well...
they just did their footwork with some chain because they were chained to each other. So it was kind of like, oh, interesting. Okay, cool. You're limited in kind of your distance and how you can kind of attack this person. There's some repercussions and recoil from every action you take. But it was short. Not really worth talking about, to be honest.
Yeah, there's just one cool moment where Scott Adkins jumps up and puts him in a neck lock with his legs, and then kind of brings him down to the ground, and then they both just start pummeling each other. But other than that, I don't know if I could say there's too much to talk about.
Yeah. Again, I'm still impressed because anytime you have a non-martial artist doing choreography, but then again, he might have gotten stunt double because there are certain scenes where you can't see his face; it's obscured because he's facing the floor and the camera's looking down. So yes, you're right. It's not really worth talking about. I guess all the real fights that you would even discuss are all in the ring. So I guess we'll move on from here.
Yeah.
And now we have. Sorry, what do you think?
They basically they're in solitary. They kind of become buddy, and they start. They finally get out of solitary. They start, digging for rocks again. They kind of do a little tug and pull kind of dance where they test each other, but they eventually kind of warm up. But they still get in each other's faces once in a while. And there's kind of a bonding experience, It's a weird, I accept you moment, but I'm not going to say it because I'm a dude, and I'm going to go with the typical approach,
Yeah.
And then, So they start training together a little bit, We find some more stuff about, the background of, all of the criminals or, the nuances of... how the tournament is laid out, some more Colombian Kiltro stuff, and eventually we kind of make our way back to
the next fight.
The ring.
Best. Well, that's 40 minutes later, but yes.
Yeah. See, that was 40 seconds of explanation for 40 minutes.
That's a minute per second of explanation you just did. Look.
Well, at least it does bring us to finally Scott Adkins versus Latif Crowder.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God, yes. Well, I'd love to talk about this, but like, if you were watching this movie and you checked out, like, you really shouldn't, because this fight is so easily the best fight in the entire movie. No offense to Marco at the end, because that fight scene's still pretty good. But I mean, it's Latif Crowder. It's like how can you beat that? And we have Scott Adkins also in his prime too. And there's just literally when the fight starts and they're, I guess, like, about to bump fists. Everything that leads up, that happens after that is just this one continuous take, this one continuous shot of them just doing crazy choreography, uninterrupted. And it's like, I think
and it looks really
all
good.
of it looks incredible. Like how can we? I can't even name all of them. Like we have a cartwheel, we have a backflip, we have a
ponytail.
We have a ponytail.
Right.
So much.
One of my favorite moments from the opening combinations of this fight is it looks like Scott Adkins is trying to do like a spinning round kick from his back facing him, and in order to negate that, Latif Crowder just steps into it and kind of pushes him.
Right.
I don't know if you recall that moment. Right? It's such like a it's such like a small moment, but I thought that was like an interesting way to negate like his kick by just literally pushing his body against it because he was so close.
It's
anyway.
the butt bump, I guess.
Oh yeah, they bump butts.
It's the ponytail way. I can't like wrap my head around like how many flips there are in the entire fight. Because like we have Scott Adkins throwing a Webster to avoid a low sweep, and then he immediately follows that up with his own spinning round kick or backside round, I guess. I don't know, like it's just so much to talk about, and I feel like I'm just gushing for the sake of gushing right now. It's funny because like Latif is so good in this fight that I wish there was just more of him, and this is really it.
I kind of wish he was the big bad because he is the most visually flashy, but obviously he's not. And there's this like great move that he does where he catches Scott Adkins is like throwing a hook, and he catches it like in his leg, and then he kind of flips backwards, causing Scott Adkins to flip with him, and then he gets him on the ground. I don't know if I'm describing it right, but it looks great because he basically catches a punch, and it causes him to tumble to the ground, bringing Scott with him, and then he gets him in the arm lock.
Well, Scott Adkins breaks out of that, and he delivers a very impressive series of moves, which is an A twist, which if you can't do a B twist, imagine doing that, but basically inverting your whole body. You're doing a B twist, trying to land that kick. He misses, and immediately follows that up with a 540. My hips hurt just describing that. It's so crazy, and like it's just like watching two. It's like watching like pro wrestling. It's like, yes, it's impractical, but man, look at the stunt work. It's so good. Yeah. And then Scott Adkins immediately follows that up with a loser. Loser being a Webster off of the corner of the ring. He jumps up and then he does a front flip with one leg. And just to avoid a flip, what I would have done is gotten to the corner and then cried because I'm about to get kicked in my backside. Oh man. I guess the plot significance of this fight, because we have to talk about the plot, is that it exposes Scott Adkins' weakness, which is his leg, and Marco Zaror sees that and is trying to take advantage of that in his really cheesy, villainous hideout up in the nosebleeds,
the balcony.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I will say the one letdown of this whole fight is how it ends. It's just basically Scott Adkins kind of like getting him in like an arm lock and like choking him out at the same time, and so he taps out of it, and like that's it like takes out all the steam of the fight for me almost. Like everything was great, but like to end it like that is just like a little disappointing for me personally.
Right.
True.
I actually didn't mind that. There's something about that simplicity I liked.
I think I agree more with Will because there was one point, and if you've noticed throughout the other fights as well, one of the ways that you know the fight is over is that when you get kicked in the face and your mouth guard comes out. So it's been kind of a
that happens every single fight.
Yeah, exactly. So you know when he gets hit, the mouth guard's out. It's like, okay, this is the finishing move. Like something's about to happen. He's either going to be falling on the ground and he's done, or there's going to be like one more set of moves and then that's it.
That's a very good point.
And that's exactly what happens.
You pretty much nailed it every time that happens. That's kind of the signifier.
Yeah, and I kind of liked when he had him in that hold because they put just enough time in there where there's like, maybe he'll get out, maybe he'll keep going, maybe this, and there's like this kind of recognition of like, no, sometimes like the most exciting moment is kind of just a little bit like simple. And you have this hold and you know that there's no way of getting out and he's defeated and he realizes that. You see the recognition on his face and he's like, all right, I gotta tap out. Right. And there's like this kind of like acknowledgement brotherhood kind of moment when they like shake hands and all this shit. So like it's kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean I mentioned it to you guys before, like they didn't really pace out the fights properly.
Oh yeah, definitely not. Absolutely not. But you know, like, so Mark, you and Mark, and well, I guess you did too, Zero. Like when we were watching this movie, and there was that lull, but between the fights, you know, like in the middle of the movie, a part of us were kind of like checking out. I think you were checking out because you were sleepy, but we were checking out, and all of a sudden the Latif fight starts, and we're like, all of us just snapped awake. We're like, oh shit! All right.
We got so excited and hyped for it too. We were like, everybody just shut up. Nobody was talking. They were just oohs and ahs everywhere.
Well, yeah, the Latif fight, totally worth checking out. Last fight is with Marco Zaror, and I don't want to talk about the plot. One, because it would be a spoiler. And, you know, and I guess if you're gonna watch the movie, we shouldn't talk about it. But also, it's like it's not really worth talking about. Like we just had the final fight between Marco Zaror and Scott Adkins. This is probably the longest one. Oh wait,
well, it's the longest one because it has like a huge break in between. Yeah. This fight has an intermission.
Well, I'm sorry. I guess I forgot to mention the next quarry fight that happens, which is the second one. It's short. It just establishes that a certain character gets away. It's basically like a prison break scene. But I don't really want to talk too much about it. There's nothing too worth mentioning here.
Yeah, there's a few cool moves that Scott does. Like he's definitely kicking those prison guards. Like he picks one up, and when he throws them, he kicks them on the way down. It's like, oh, geez, fucking overkill. But yeah, I would say like we don't really need to go into it.
Yeah. I mean, there's that one sidekick he throws at a prison guard, and I kind of liked because it was nice and high. That's all I want to say about that.
That's it, right? Yeah, there's not much to talk about.
I wish they did more stuff with like that throughout one, like in the middle of the movie, so it would just break up the monotony of like explaining the story, and so you wouldn't be drawn into the fact that we have a lot of bad acting in the movie too. We didn't talk about that at all. And this is hard for me to say that because we have Robert Costanza in the movie. And if you grew up on 80s movies, even 90s movies, you'll recognize him as like that Danny DeVito-ish actor. Like he always plays him, you know, like if you're in voice acting too. Like if there was a Danny DeVito character, Robert Costanza is going to, you know, do his character if Danny DeVito wasn't available. And he was in Die Hard 2, for God's sakes. But here he is in this movie, which was fucking surprising. I was like, oh shit. But he's just surrounded by a lot of like really bad accents and, you know, subpar acting. I'm like, oh my god, it's just move on with the story so we could just get on to the next fight scene. And here we are at the final fight with Marco and Scott. Now I guess like Scott Adkins' knee is really starting to bother him, and now he's like starting to reach his limits. And I guess Marco. I mean, the whole point of this fight is to for Marco to take advantage of Scott's weakness. And
he doesn't just like weaken it; he freaking demolishes that leg. He does like 3 separate moves just to make sure like it's over. And then he's hobbling one. Like obviously you see Boyko or Scott Adkins screaming in pain and all of this. And then he like tries to fight and get up again, and he's just like limping around, and he's barely doing anything, and he keeps on getting like hit in the leg, and he keeps on going down, and it looks like it's almost over. And then Mark does this freaking, oh my god, just ending move where the blood splatter of it all, and then just like everything, like the slow-mo on it, and the like just freaking propels him, and then it's just like another beatdown again and again and again, and then like a clothesline via the back of the calf straight to the neck, and just it's brutal. Like it's over. Right. And then he starts dancing as if he's like having fun. Like this is nothing. Like I'm having a great time. Like
that's his character. He's supposed to be like taunting the other guy.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you guys noticed it. I felt like Scott Adkins like had a completely different stance in this entire fight. Right? Like he felt like he was I mean, not that he didn't throw like all his crazy acrobatics like he normally does, but like starting out, he feels like he's more like an MMA stance, which is like more wide-legged. You can't really you can't jump as high when your legs are that wide. So he looks more grounded, and it looks like he's blocking, doing a lot more parries. It was weird because it felt like the most realist. Oh man, it feels really weird to say that about this movie. It feels the most grounded.
Right. Yeah, no, I was gonna say like the fight choreography here isn't as like flashy as like the prior fights. Like it looks like there's a lot of really, really, really fast exchanges of blows and blocks, and I think that's why I like this a lot. Is because like it as you mentioned, it feels like a little more realistic because of that. Like it's not. It's I don't want to say it's not cinematic. It's just like I like that they're throwing like a lot of combinations, and then there's blocks to the combinations and whatnot. And we don't get so many people like flipping around and doing like fanciful type of things.
I mean, there's still choreography. I mean, like otherwise the movie would be a mess.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They're just throwing punches and like they're seeing who lands them. But there's still impressive choreography here. But it does escalate as the fight goes on. It gets more. They get a little bit more fanciful with their their acrobatics and such. But like starting out, I thought it was like a nice escalation of things. Like they're starting a little bit more realistic, a little bit more like on their feet and not jumping around so much. And that's weird because we have Marco Zaror and Scott Adkins who are they're pretty good with their flips and everything. So I thought this would be similar to Latif Crowder's fight, which is them just doing twists and aerials and such. But like as the fight keeps going on, you see more and more of that. Like Scott Adkins like does a side flip to avoid a low kick. Again, he really likes doing that for some reason. So I don't know how effective that is in a fight, but okay.
But yeah, after this whole moment, you got this beatdown going on, and basically it's finishing a move, and Scott Adkins gets thrown out of the ring via kicked in the face, basically, and gratuitous blood splatter, saliva, etc., whatever. And then, you got Mark kind of cheering for the crowd, and he's like, I won, yay! And then Scott Adkins is having this kind of existential crisis or something, and he all of a sudden sees a mop, and he's like, I know that. That used to be my job.
Well, wait. Before we get to that, I want to say... Oh my gosh! As much as I want to talk about the shit rag that he puts all over his bloodied up knee, which is totally not going to get infected.
Glorious.
Of course.
Sepsis!
It's funny because I wanted to point that out that earlier in the fight with Latif Crowder, Scott Adkins throws a fei long, which is a hook kick, a jumping hook kick, and you immediately, like while you're in midair, you actually you chamber your other legs to do a round kick. So it's like hook kick, round kick. So it's like if the first leg hit misses, then the second one will land, and that actually works on Latif. So Marco watches that fight and learns that his repertoire, and that's how he gets the advantage over Scott, which is when Scott is about to do the fei long, he misses the hook kick, and Marco grabs the round kick, and that's how it gets him into that submission.
I like that they slowed that moment down, because upon rewatching, you can see him anticipating the other leg, and then you see his hands like come up to grab it. And I was like, oh, cool. I didn't notice that the first time.
If you don't notice the moves, like that subtlety that you just pointed out, like nobody would notice, regardless of the slow-mo, because that like viewing of it in the earlier fight is quick, and it's you think it's almost like just concentrating on the fact that like, oh, this character's here still, like in somewhere in the background.
How would you miss it? Because
but it's
how
more
would you
than
miss
that.
it? You see. Well, in that earlier fight, you see like the camera just zooms like straight into Marco's face. It's like, I see that move.
I just thought he wanted to do. I thought he wanted to do a peekaboo, like whatever.
Peekaboo, I'm in the movie. Again, way creepier in Killtro. So you were saying before that once the leg is broken, or he breaks that leg again, after grabbing that leg and putting him into a leg lock, like now Scott Adkins is a complete disadvantage because he's not even able to block any moves, and now Marco's just toying with him, just smacking him around, literally like throwing these really light jabs just to fuck with him, and then
he's trying to like get back into it, like he's trying to like still throw some punches, and he's trying to block and trying to get him, but like after that slow-mo finishing move that like this guy's done, it's all like attempts for like the next minute of him trying to like survive this fight until he basically gets kicked out of the ring, and then he has this moment of like very quick self-reflection and like I'm a power up here for a moment via compression sock or whatever the hell, like
this is one of the most baffling Deus Ex Machina moments. Like what's gonna save him? It was the mop the whole time. His best friend from the beginning of the movie.
What
literally saves.
What were you guys thinking when he was like they did a ring out, and you hear the referee doing the counting, which I thought was weird, but apparently that's a real thing in wrestling rules. It's like they count to either 10 or 20, and he was counting down, and as Scott Adkins like looked up because he was writhing in pain, he looked up and he saw the mop, and like he had an epiphany. But me as an audience member, I'm like, what are you gonna do with that mop? I don't get it. Like I don't get it. I was like, are you gonna make a splint? Like what are you gonna do?
I legit thought he was gonna break the handle of the damn thing and use it as like two staffs to like just kick his ass with like weapons.
That wouldn't be fair.
Like
it
wouldn't
defeat the whole purpose.
It wouldn't. However, it would make the most sense out of anything that happened.
I would be booing the character if he did that. Like, boo! What a dick! What a fucking asshole! I didn't know, and then we're like, what? What is he gonna do with that? And then the next shot, when like the referee's like 8, 9. As soon as like 9, they say 9. That's when Scott Adkins puts that thing over his knee. I'm like, he would have been disqualified. Like I don't know how he can get back in the ring in 1 second after that. But he does. He gets back in there, and now he's capable of actually putting weight on that leg again. And he's also impervious to punches to the face because I guess
to be fair, there is some relief from like compression for the moment, but it wouldn't last. As soon as he threw that first kick, he would be like, "Oh fuck, what I did was wrong. I shouldn't have done that." Like that's it.
Yeah, and, it's unfortunate that the mop is what powers him up because no.
Undisputed 3, The Power of Mops. That should have been the subtitle. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's that tourniquet that makeshift. Is it even tourniquet? I guess like that makeshift. That makeshift knee brace that he makes himself.
Yeah, knee brace.
That knee
brace.
brace that gives him the ability to withstand like blows to the head. Because like Marco's like trying to smack him around, and like now it's not working. And you know, it's weird because like I wasn't expecting Scott to throw any more acrobatics because of this, but he does.
Yeah.
Knee be damned. Who cares?
Yeah. And he uses that same knee, which really annoys the shit out of me. Like, he still does that, like, hobble or whatever to imply that he's in pain, but he still uses it. And it's just like, dude, no. Like, at least use the other leg. Like, stop doing the Van Damme. Come on. I've mentioned Van Damme, like, 4 times this episode
How many times
already.
have we mentioned Street Fighter in this episode?
And Ip Man. That's the theme of this whole podcast. Right here.
Well, I guess as a just desserts, the way that Scott Adkins defeats Marco is by throwing. Well, I mean, he's anticipating Marco's jumping round kick. So as retaliation, Scott Adkins leaps into the air and he throws his knee in front to block the move, and then Marco's leg turns into a CGI jelly.
Just like Superman's mustache.
I love that moment. You were like, oh, come on.
I wasn't like, oh, come on. I was more like, what hell is that?
I definitely was like, oh, come on.
I don't know. I loved it because I like how it literally does turn into like a limp boner. It's just flopping in the wind.
It's like I'm rewatching it right now. Like that motion blur is so like it doesn't match the scene at all, and like
this is
Yeah,
VOD.
I guess.
You can't. I'm not gonna get mad at it for like shoddy. Low
I
budget
can
CG.
because it's the only point in the movie where there's any CG at all.
Yeah. No, I do understand that. I wish they just like made the shin explode or something with blood. Like I would have been fine with that.
Or just like a bone protruding out of the damn leg or something. Like that would have been more believable.
Like if you pause on this moment where Marco falls to the ground in pain and you look at that quote unquote disfigured leg, like his calf grows an extra foot.
I was gonna say, like it got longer. Well, I mean, maybe he dislocated the bone,
but
from
the
knee
skin's
joint,
still intact.
So it caused the skin and muscles to sag.
Yeah, well, that's how he defeats him. And then there's a little bit more story, but who cares? That is the movie. That is Undisputed 3. Man, we talked to death this movie. And it's funny because
that's a great movie.
Well,
fight scene wise, actually, you know what? Screw it. Like everything, just because it's my kind of movie.
Okay. I'm very, very surprised to hear that. But I want to. Maybe we'll end.
I know we can't coordinate like what we like here for some reason.
Like
Like
opinions, I'll actually end with you because I prefer to end with something more positive. Zero, do you want to go first? Well, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. We might have like you and I might have similar sentiments.
I might not have to talk.
I saw this movie.
I said I might not even have to talk.
Will's in the middle finally.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, so I saw this when it kind of around when it first came out, and I remember liking the martial arts, but I guess I just completely forgot the story. And then upon rewatching this, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's why I didn't really remember the story because I just could not get into this movie for the plot. I think I'm in an agreement a little bit with you, Mark, where like some of it is silly enough where it was enjoyable, but it didn't arise to the like so bad it's good for me where I was thoroughly enjoying it all the way throughout.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can watch it, but you don't really need to. I kind of harp on this earlier. This does kind of follow the basic tournament style story, so if you're not really into those types of movies, like you're not really missing much on this. Like it's pretty much kind of the same deal. But fights are pretty good. My criticism with the fights and with a lot of tournament fight movies is there's the danger of it being too visually the same. Like we're always in that ring for a fight, and if they don't make the choreography stand out enough, then sometimes it's hard to differentiate the fights. And when I was like trying to think about talking about this for the podcast, I was like, oh man, like some of these fights are blending together because the location is exactly the same. Not to take away from any of the choreography. It's just like visually, I have to rewatch it to like separate the different move sets and like the different fighters, because they're literally just in that ring the whole time.
Man, you would have hated Undisputed too, because like that ring is even smaller. it's like barely boxing size regulation size. I don't.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
But yes. So I was just gonna say, I don't know if I could really recommend the movie. If you really like Scott Adkins and you support him, definitely watch it. But otherwise, the fights are great. You can just watch the fights.
I will echo most of what you said. I don't have to beat a dead horse. The only counterpoints to that is I personally didn't have a problem with the visual staleness or whatever. I didn't mind that it was one fight. Yes, it is a tournament fighter. That is actually a detriment to the movie, because the story is so bare bones to the point where it's kind of slow at times, and I didn't care for that supporting character at all. The one played by Michael Jenkins. Michael, damn it, I knew I was gonna forget it. Michael Shannon Jenkins. I thought he was kind of like it eventually became like his story, kind of like it was. That's where the subtitle comes in, redemption. Scott Adkins' redemption comes in by helping this guy. Like that story didn't interest me in any way, shape, or form. So it's all about the tournament, and it's just an excuse to watch people fight, which is I'm all for. But if we're talking about story, it's not worth it. Yes, just go watch the fight scenes. Visually, I didn't care. Like I thought they had enough variety in there, and I can always remember each fight scene just because who's in the fight, right? So like I didn't have that mistake of thinking, well, was this fight with Latif, Latif versus Croatian dude, or I forget if it was Croatian, if it was Croatian or not. Was it him versus the Croatian dude, or was it him with the Scott Atkins? I'm like, well, it's kind of obvious which one that is, because the one with Scott Adkins is fucking awesome. It's more distinctive in my head for some reason. It's weird because I totally recommend watching the fights. I don't recommend the movie, and it's weird for me to say that, because I want to say this is like one of the best martial arts choreography in any movie I've ever seen, even to this day. It's because just because of the athleticism there, but it's still a weird recommend for me to say that, because I don't recommend the movie itself. If you watch the fight scenes, just that's all you need. And last point I want to make, again, Scott Adkins said that this movie is it's the best movie he's ever made, and I still think Boyka, the next one, is even better. So when we get to that, we'll talk about that as well. So that's Undisputed 3. And Mark, you can be the positive one here. Why did you love this movie, and why are we wrong?
Not necessarily wrong. Ditto to both of your points, and they're very accurate. I think anything and everything related to action is absolutely correct. As far as I agree with you, Will, more on the plot points, I guess, in some regards. But no, it's something about timing and kind of like, it's such an interesting like setup where in this film where, like I was saying before, you have like that build up, you have the fight scenes, but you don't expect there to be 4 fight scenes back to back to back to back. Like it's so in your face, and you're like, holy shit, did that just happen? So like during that next part where you have time to like not really focus on the plot. You're like, okay, plot's happening, but you're still kind of like reminiscing about the fact that like you just saw these amazing fights happen, which are like the elimination rounds before you even get to the semifinals of this whole film. And then finally, when you do get to the semifinals, you're like, all right, I'm ready for it because there's too much plot going on. It's almost in a weird way like slowly kind of manipulating your emotions to getting to that point where you're like, all right, I've just about had it. I need to see fights. And then in that moment, you're just like, oh shit, the fights are here. All right, gotta focus. Like, you know? So, like, no, like,
That's such a cynical way of viewing the movie.
I'm sorry, but that's why I enjoyed it so much because like that whole approach, like I'm not saying the plot was good. By far, the plot was shit. Like being
I wouldn't be that.
honest,
I wouldn't be that.
There were
extreme.
funny
It
parts.
just wasn't interesting.
No, it wasn't. So like Zero said it right. There were corny parts in many parts of the film, and then they kind of like lighthearted, kind of like okay, cool. Like there's some bonding experience. There's a little bit of everything. But then, like, the real thing is, like, there's long enough of a pause throughout that whole thing where you're just like, okay, I can't wait for the next fight. When's it coming? When's it coming? The anticipation's building. And then eventually you get to the fight, and then it's that epic fight between Brazil and Russia. And it's just like, holy shit. And, like, how are you going to top that, you know?
Right.
I think kind of after watching that fight, it almost makes up for having like a 30 to 40 minute gap of plot. And once again, some moments were great within that plot just for like the corniness and the hilarity of it all. And then you eventually get to the final fight, and then you're just like, oh, we're at the final fight. It's so exciting. And then you get like these WTF moments, and you get these two different characters, like you guys said before, where you expect like this bigger dude and Scott Adkins, who's this like smaller, injured, kind of
frail animal,
almost handicapped in a way. Yeah, like in comparison to Mark, who or Marco,
Mark,
who yeah, Marco, and then you have that fight, and it's so like, oh, he's about to get defeated. It's like a twist on everything because Boyka or Scott Adkins has been pulling through tremendously throughout the whole film, and in more ways than one, not only in fights but in like a kind of like an emotional, like mental journey. And then eventually you get to that last fight, and it's just like, what the hell just happened? Because there's a mop on his leg.
Sure,
so,
okay. Cheesiness factor, yeah, is there, yeah.
You know, like that, and with the addition of staying at home and coronavirus times, I think there's kind of some influence here in my liking of this movie, because this is probably like one of my most enjoyable films that I've seen out of like no, not in my life. I'm saying like within the last week, it's probably the most enjoyable film that I've seen. So I think I'm a little biased in all of this. So don't take my opinion to heart completely.
Like the entire time you're explaining that, like why you liked it, I was trying to think of an analogy of how you can justify that 40-minute gap. Like it's like, well, yeah, like well, I mean, it's like it just builds that anticipation until you get to that fight scene, but it's just really good. It's like a release. It's like, I was like, what is a good analogy for this? It's like waiting for it's like you don't believe in premarital sex, and you just get married and you can finally let it happen. So that waiting was really worth it. But was it really? Was it really worth waiting?
No, you know what? The fight scenes make it great. I mean, I'm so glad I watched the whole film. Regardless, like, yes, I agree that if you just watch the fight scenes, and hopefully in the order that the film goes with the fight scenes, I think you should watch it in that order. As their
sure.
Yeah, I agree with that, because it does escalate.
For sure.
Yeah, And then even if the last fight isn't technically an escalation as far as like the graph is concerned, it's definitely on point with kind of like the mood of all the fights throughout, and kind of like the development of like the characters and shit. So would definitely watch the fights. No complaints there. But if you want to just like watch a film that has a little bit of like some corniness and terrible moments in it that's gonna make you laugh, yeah, definitely watch the movie. I mean, why wouldn't you watch a movie that is known for having some of the best fight scenes and like kind of enjoy the rest of it while you're at it?
Right. Well, we'll end on that positivity because I just compared this movie to sex, so I don't think that's a good way.
Just masturbate, guys.